Wizards Spell Magic and the Legends of Leander, an exciting new magical children's book. I have an excerpt from chapter 18 for you. Quickly, I'll just give you a taste. As the dark wizard Delveriastian searches the magical realm of Leander in his thirst for the powers of the lost magical entities, bringing destruction and chaos to these magical lands, but when 4 ordinary children from our worlds accidentally stumble upon one of the entities, the dark obsidian gemstone within the grounds of an old haunted castle, their adventures have only just begun. Dare they discover all of the magical entities before the dark wizard in time to save Leander? Excerpt from chapter 18. Myethesteril, hidden realm of the Elves, deception within a deception. The white horses cantered through the forest, undaunted by the deafening sound of the great white waterfall cascading before them. They cantered through the white mists of spray behind the waterfall into a great cave with enormous stalagmites. Daylight shone down upon them as they emerged from the caves, where they were bewildered by the sheer beauty of the lands before them. Huge waterfalls cascaded down immense cliffs, rainbows falling across them. Sunlight glistened upon the white spray tumbling down into the glassy lake below. Around them immense trees towered up into the sky, intertwined with a myriad of bridges and balconies, a metropolis of life. Beyond the trees, standing alone in the forest, rose up a huge outcrop of white rock, where built into the cliffs was a beautifully carved ornate palace, turrets, balconies and bridges, carved from the white cliffs, forming an elfin palace of majestic ornate beauty. "Oh!" they gasped, as they took in the wondrous sight. "Myethesteril," said Xanthan, "this is the hidden realm of the Elves." "Come, you must rest with us a while, to recover from your ordeal," said the elfin prince. "It's the least we can do." That evening they dined upon an open balcony beneath the stars. The huge waterfalls cascaded around them in the ornately crafted palace of balconies, walkways and bridges, surrounded by hanging gardens and beautiful flowers adorning the walls and archways. "This is heavenly," said Morgan, breathing a sigh as they dined on a delicious, delicate meal of exquisite elfin delights. The candlelight about them gave the evening an enchanted magical feel beneath the stars. "I wanted you to experience all of this for yourselves," said the elfin prince. He took a deep breath. "The dark wizard Delveriastian knows nothing of this hidden inner realm, and never can he be allowed to. He destroys and distorts all he touches and becomes more dangerous with his growing power and greed. His tyrannical reign over the dark lands and beyond must come to an end. The hurricane, the storms he sends to devastate us, we can take no more of his tyrannous destruction of our enchanted forests, our home. He knows no bounds in his obsession to discover the magical entities and possess their power. He has gone too far." "I hear well, noble prince," said Meldrick sadly. "That is our wish too," answered Allbright, nodding solemnly. Suddenly a black jaguar leapt up across the balcony, its great white fangs bared in a vicious snarl as it sprang upon their table. "Ah!" everyone gasped and shrank back from the fearsome creature. Its wild, untamed, savage beauty and fearsome presence were mesmerizing. The black jaguar prowled slowly up the centre of the long table, snarling at Xanthan at the head. The jaguar's amber eyes stared into his, glowering. Meldrick clutched his magical charms and drew out his wand. Suddenly 2 more huge black jaguars leapt onto the balcony from out of nowhere, snarling and baring their fangs at the wizards. Everyone shuddered and shrank back. An immense roar shattered the silence from beyond the archway to the balcony. The black jaguar leapt down from the table, snarling beside the elfin prince. Xanthan placed his hand upon the hilt of his sword, his other hand poised at the jaguar, ready to throw a deathly incantation. In a snarl of white teeth and claws, a huge white tiger leapt across the archway onto the table. He turned his head, glowering at everyone as he fixed his flaming eyes upon the elfin prince as he prowled towards him. "Have you the magical gems?" snarled the white tiger, baring his huge fangs in a deathly snarl. The elfin prince's dark eyes flashed at the white tiger, full of hatred. The tiger leapt towards the elf with a huge roar. "Do not give me cause to sink my teeth into you, elf," snarled the fearsome tiger. Xanthambar shivered and looked down, humiliated. Pain showed in his dark almond eyes, as he looked pitifully first at Albright, then Meldrick. "Forgive me," he pleaded. "What duplicity is this?" shouted Meldrick as he jumped to his feet. "A trap, a devious trick! What treachery is this, elf?" cried Meldrick. "You call us your friends as we do you," shouted Albright. "How can you do this, when all of our futures are at risk?" Xanthambar's pitiful expression said it all. His voice low, he falteringly whispered, "They've taken my daughter Lilesquith. Dalvarastian holds her imprisoned in his dark castle. He threatens never to release her unless the magical entities are turned over to him." Xanthambar swallowed and looked down, sorrow written across his face. His beautiful elfin princess beside him began to weep. "Dalvarastian sent his dark dragons to take my son too today, but Estraquesh and Valquizar, your dragons, stopped them. Forgive me, please forgive me. I do not know what I do any longer. I am blinded by my grief." He sighed in desperation. "I can't bear it." He sank to his knees. "Forgive me." "The gemstones," snarled the white tiger. "Give them to me now." He growled as he bared his huge white canine teeth at Cameron's throat. The terror in Cameron's face told Jack he could no longer play this waiting game. Jack reached down to his rucksack beneath the table, which hid the precious magical gemstones. "That won't be necessary," said Albright loudly, glancing quickly at Jack, then back at the great white tiger. He rose to his feet and glared at the ferocious white beast. "I have them here for you." Jack gulped at Albright in surprise, hurriedly hiding his rucksack. The wizard glared back at Jack. "Be silent," he whispered to him telepathically in his head. Jack recoiled in surprise, but remained silent. Albright lifted up the small wooden casket he had brought with him and placed it upon the table. The tiger prowled towards him suspiciously. "This had better be no trick, wizard," he growled, peering into the wooden casket. Albright gently lifted out the magical ruby ring and dark obsidian gemstone, placing them on the table before the huge white tiger. "There is your prize, phantom," said Albright thickly. "Now take them back to your master and leave these innocents alone." Everyone gasped in horror. "How can this be?" cried Meldrick in alarm. Albright shot the older wizard a fierce glare which silenced him. The huge white tiger let out an immense roar, and as he did so metamorphosized before them into none other than the dark phantom. "Seath!" gasped Jack in shock. The phantom looked about the table at his horrified onlookers and threw back his head, letting out a horrendous laugh. "You underestimate the dark wizard to your detriment," cried Seath, grasping the gemstones in his hand. He leapt into the air, metamorphosizing again into the form of a great dark dragon, leaping over the balcony, and flew up into the night sky, over the forests and to the mountains beyond, blasting a jet of flame from his jaws as he flew, incinerating the tree-tops in his fury. The 3 black jaguars leapt after him, changing as they did so into dark dragons themselves. Everyone sat in stunned silence, gazing after them in disbelief. Only Albright sat with a contented smile upon his face. "And you underestimate me to your detriment, Seath," he said softly. Meldrick glowered at Albright in anger. "What have you done?" he cried to the wizard, jumping up. "Have you lost your mind?" he shouted frantically, flailing his arms in the air at Albright. Albright looked at Jack and gave a brief wink, then slowly stood up. "Quite the opposite, dear friend," said Albright softly, lifting up the lower base within the wooden casket. He gently took out the dark obsidian gemstone and magical ruby ring. Everyone gasped in surprise. "But the dragon, the tiger, the phantom," stuttered the dark elf. "He took them." "No," said Albright. "He took what his eyes told him seemed to be the magical entities. They were, in fact, the very good replicas of the magical entities I had manufactured soon before I left for these lands. I anticipated we may run into something like this." "Ah, well done," said Meldrick, thumping his chest with a gasp of relief. "I never doubted you for a minute, dear friend," he blustered. "Now we must be ever vigilant to protect these magical entities," he said hurriedly, snatching up the gemstones and secreting them within one of his robe's hidden pockets.